Welcome to Healing Generations, a podcast creating a dialogue uplifting the importance of healing, strengthening, and supporting our communities, and that addresses the disparities and inequities in communities of color. Healing Generations is brought to you by the Healing Generations Institute, a collaborative initiative of the National Compadres Network and the Brotherhood of Elders. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on our new releases.
Welcome. I would just like to welcome all of our listeners, wherever you're at, all around this beautiful Mother Earth, whether you're in the East, the West, the North, the South. We just want to welcome you today. And we're so grateful that you're joining us. This is our monthly podcast that's hosted by the National Comadres Network. And we're part of the Healing Generation podcast series, and we're very grateful to be coming to you today. My name is Debra Camarillo, and up over here in the Bay Area, there's a beautiful, beautiful convergence of many tribes in this area. And so just very grateful to their sacrifice that allows us to be here today. But comadre, how you doing? Because you're down south. How are you doing over there? What's it like over there?
Oh, we just had a nice showers through the night, but the sol is coming out now. It's so beautiful. Just everything smells so clean, so fresh. So happy to be here on the Tangva Camarillo territory today, down here in the Los Angeles area. I've just been feeling really grateful this morning. Grateful for another day. It came to me yesterday. We had the opportunity to go to one of our favorite little Mexican restaurants yesterday for lunch. And we have our favorite waitress there. Her name is Lulu. Been working there with the family for many, many years. And it was so beautiful. It was such a beautiful reminder. And I felt like it was divinely guided out of her mouth when she approached us. And we were like, Lulu, how are you? How you doing? And she goes, you know what, comadre? I am just so blessed. I'm so blessed. I feel so blessed. I'm glad I woke up this morning. I'm glad I still have my job. Just all the basic things that sometimes we forget about. And I know like they're all afraid, what's going on around the world at this time. There's a lot of fear going on there. But it was a beautiful reminder. I felt like, in spite of everything that's going on, she was able to focus on her blessings and the joy of just being present that day and being able to go to work. And I really felt like she was speaking to my heart, actually. And then I always try to focus there, but sometimes with all the unpredictability and all the craziness, it's easy to lose sight of that sometimes. So she brought me back to that. So I just wanted to share that, to remember our blessings, remember to be in joy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no kidding. There's a lot happening, on this political climate. I know
Absolutely.
We've heard about just the firing of the special education department, everyone being fired there, SAMHSA's being hit. And I think the thing that is so concerning is that these decisions directly impact our communities of color. And so for us as people, it's that time to come together. We need to remind ourselves that we need each other. And that when we come together in that way of support, we really can survive and even thrive sometimes in these very difficult times. And so I agree, not only remembering our blessings, but remembering each other, right? And that support of one another. And with that being said, we've got a wonderful guest here that is, supports this work, difficult work, working with the community and training and preparing people to do those direct services. And I mean, the importance of everyone knowing your lane, because when we can all come together with all of our unique gifts, and be faithful and true to that and in alignment to that, it allows for things to just, roll out and for things to happen. And so I'm excited. excited to have this conversation. So, comadres, let's bring our guest in.
Absolutely. It's such an honor. Just feels so much joy that we finally got to connect in this way. She is our comadre Patricia Prado Marquez-Singh. Patty, we call her. She is a holistic educator and restorative practitioner with over 20 years of experience working in the education, nonprofit, and government sectors. She's also the founder of Forward Joy Consulting, where she offers consultation, training, leadership engagement, and coaching in the areas of transformational healing, trauma-responsive, culturally rooted restorative practices. Patricia also works to address racial and ethnic disparities, dismantle systemic barriers, and develop culturally responsive, trauma-informed, and healing-centered approaches that are anchored in strengthening relationships and connection. Patty is committed to supporting communities in ways that are rooted in healing and compassion, which is so needed, and has been an advocate for children and families in the education and government system. She's also a certified circle keeper and trainer for the National Compadres Network. Patty is also a poet and a published author. Her latest book, Healing is for All, a beautiful collection of poetry, Making the Path to Healing the Heart, which was released in October of last year as well, 2024. She's also the proud daughter of Jaime and Soledad Marquez, wife to Roy Singh, and mother of her 6-year-old, James Singh, as well. She is born and raised in Hollister, California. She's very proud of her San Benito County roots and now lives in Morgan Hill, California. Patty is also very connected to her ancestral lands of Michoacán and San Luis Potosi, Mexico, where her parents are from. Welcome, comadre. Such an honor to have you here with us. Thank you for making the time and choosing to come and sit with us and talk and bring all the medicina that you carry, what your ancestors carry, and all those people that you've been blessed with on your path to where you are now. I'd like to pass the palabra to you to give you a chance to introduce yourself. I invite you to share a little bit about your familia, yourself, your background, or the work that you're connected to at this time, and always anything that comes from your beautiful corazón.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon, maestras, and everyone who's listening. I'm filled with so much gratitude in this moment. I am both honored and humbled to be sitting here with you today, sharing and connecting in this way. Just as I'm hearing you, it's sort of an odd thing, right? To have people introduce you. It's always been odd for me, but it makes me teary-eyed. It's emotional to hear someone else talk about the work that you do, the legacy that I'm trying to build, right? Who I am in this moment. And that in and of itself is healing. This is healing, right? And so thank you to our creator, to the universe, to the National Compadres Network, to the Healing Generations podcast for this opportunity. I'm truly, truly honored and humbled. And so you shared a little bit about who I am and my family. And so, yes, I am a proud daughter. I am the oldest of 3 siblings and the only daughter. So you can imagine what that means, right? The oldest and the only daughter in a Mexican family. I am, a translator, a navigator, a CPA, a travel agent. I'm a lawyer. I'm a mediator. I'm a therapist, right? I'm all of those things. No certifications or degrees for most of those things. And yet I am. And I say that with pride now because I've learned to really take that as a power and to share in that way and to give back to my family in that way. But I'm very proud of where I came from, growing up in Hollister with my family and my 2 younger brothers. We had a great childhood, a great upbringing, very proud of that work. And, being the daughter of immigrant parents really helped to shape the work that I do now, helped to really uncover my purpose. I often say that my purpose found me in many ways. It's like I was born with the purpose, but it took me a while to really uncover what that was. And in many ways, I feel like that's always evolving, right? Our purpose, it is dependent on a lot of external and internal factors. And we can get into that a little bit more maybe later, but I'm really glad that I was able to really find my niche and my lane, as Maestra Debbie says, right? What was my lane? What was mine to do? And really that was shaped by my upbringing and being this sort of navigator for my mother, especially. Coming here as a young lady, not knowing the language, and having to really be her eyes and ears. And I dedicate a lot of my poetry to my mom and the experience that her and I had together. Really being able to help her navigate the world culturally, linguistically. And so I'm very proud to now be that for so many people in our community, for Raza, right? So a lot of the work that I do now, my background is in education, as you both know. And I think especially in the last few years, my work has really shifted to working with adults. Working in education, we have a lot of focus on children, on youth, which is still really important, right? We know that especially our students of color do not have enough resources in schools. And what I realized in the last few years is that if we were going to help youth, we had to help adults. We had to really have this call to action of the educators in education about what we were asking of ourselves and how we really ground ourselves to be able to do the work that we do with youth. And so a lot of the work I do now, as you read in my intro, really centers around the consultation and the coaching and the training around transformational healing and restorative practices, and all really rooted in cultura, because as we know very well, la cultura cura, right? Our culture cures. Mm-hmm. And it's really trying to be a vessel, right, for those teachings. And so that's a little bit of sort of where I am right now and what I'm navigating and what I'm really grounded in the present moment.
You know, Patty, you shared about your family's experience. You said, I come from an immigrant family. Mm-hmm. And given what we're going through in this present day and time, can you share a little bit of that journey, just getting here, and then having to navigate it now with this current temperature? And how do you deal with that within yourself? Because you talk about transformational healing. And so that when you say transformation, it's a verb. It's still movement. It's just not you arrive, so with those kind of thoughts in mind, can you share with us, how that part of the journey has been and what you're doing now to navigate it?
Absolutely. Thank you, Maestra Debbie. And in fairness, I should say that I'm actually second generation. So my mom was born in Michoacán, Mexico, and came to the United States when she was very young. She was about 15 years old. My dad was born in Texas, but really identifies more with where his family is from, which is San Luis Potosí. And so that's where we really connect to. But I will say that with my mother's experience, and it's the one I talk about often because it is that immigrant experience, I know that what I saw my mom have to do to adapt, because when she came, she was also not allowed to go to school, right? She had to work. My mom is the oldest in her family. And so all of her siblings were younger than her. So at 15, she had to start working. And talk about longevity. My mom has been working in the same place for over 50 years. Right? My mom just turned 70 years old. Hola, mami.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, and as I was growing up, hearing her story, just of that sadness of not being able to have a formal education here in this country, to be denied that opportunity, I think was very painful for her. And I think if we were to have my mom here sitting with us, I think that she would say that she's happy with her life, that she loves her family, that she loves being a provider and, being a woman of faith. And I think that that's what she would say. And I know that in more candid conversations, I know that internal struggle and sadness about what could have been if she would have had the opportunity to go to school, to really formally learn the language. And I think that, earlier when I say that really shaped what I ended up doing for work is, I think, so powerful. And I will say, growing up, there was a level of shame when I was younger, seeing the way, as I said, I was her navigator. And so I saw the way that people looked at her, the way that people perceived her. I was the buffer for the insults, for the looks, right? And I knew that she didn't have to understand them to know how people were perceiving her.
Mm-hmm.
But it does something to you as a young child. And I kind of took that and it turned into almost like shame. Like, oh, Ma, why can't you just learn the language? And, why does it got to be this way? And as I, got older and, was, matured a little bit and got a little bit wiser, then I was ashamed of the shame that I felt towards my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? It was like, how could I think that way? Like, my mom is a warrior. Mm-hmm. She did what she had to do to get her family ahead. I had to go translate for her at the bank because she was like, I'm going to have my own bank account. I'm not going to rely on anybody else. I need a bank account. And so there we went. I need to take my kids to the doctor. So there we went. I'm going to expose my kids to events and community festivals. And there we went. She was a warrior. And that is what in turn, I try to be a reflection of in our community, in our most marginalized communities. Maestra Debbie, and you said it so well, in the communities that are currently being attacked, that we see being targeted in so many parts of this country. And so I feel like what's mine to do is to remind people of who we are and the shoulders that we stand upon. Because all I have to do is remember, I come from that woman. I come from my mother, who came from our ancestors. And I can do anything. And not only can I, but you can too. Mm-hmm. And not only is that transformational healing possible, but we are worthy of it. We can transform our systems and we can transform our communities through connection and belonging, and we are worthy of it. And I feel like that is part of my purpose.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's powerful. There's so much said right there in the medicina, but the message is so clear, so clear. As Maestra is sharing, coming from immigrant families, experiencing all of that, being your mother's voice, being, your mother's navigator, translator, all those things to help her fulfill her purpose, being there, what a blessing, what a powerful, priceless blessing. But I would imagine because of what's going on today, with all the immigration and ICE things that are happening out there, it could be very triggering, I would imagine. Very triggering. Like, are we here again? Like, are we going back here? Like, this is like deja vu. Like, I'm experiencing it all over again, after so many years. And yet you've managed to rise above that and be the founder of Forward Joy Consulting in spite of all of that. where you could have chose to sit in your wounds and just make excuses for why you are the way you are and why you're so angry and whatever that is. But instead you chose, and it was a choice to move forward and to do it in joy and to continue being not just your mother's joy and light, but also all those that you're working with. You know, many years ago, and instead of making New Year's resolutions that always fall to the side by not even before you even get half through the year, I've purposely chosen to just choose 2 words that I want to focus on to cultivate and embody for the year. A couple of years ago, my 2 words were surrender and joy. And joy meaning, to me personally, to be able to just wake up in joy without my joy being dependent on something or someone else, but just feeling the joy of my spirit, the joy of my ancestors within me, the joy of being alive, all of those things. But it makes me curious to know, you chose forward joy for a reason. You had an intention. So it makes me curious to know, how do you define joy for yourself? And then because of all the triggering that's going on, how are you able to maintain your joy?
Beautiful question. Thank you, Maestra Susie. And I agree with you about the New Year's resolutions. That's why I do intentions, because I feel like resolutions are meant to be broken, right?
Yeah.
But when you set an intention, even when you start to veer away from it, you can check yourself back. Oh, wait a minute. Is this aligned with the intention that I had? Right. And go back and course correct. Right. So I always like to set intentions for the year. So I love that. So yes, forward joy. So I'll share just a little bit about how that came about. So in 2021, I kind of took the biggest leap of faith in my life, and I left my job because it was really sucking the life out of me, if I can be honest. And I really lost faith in the institution, but not in the mission. And I knew that my ancestors had a dream for me, and that was not it. And so I needed to really live the dream that my ancestors had for me. And so I left my job. I had been doing really good work for over 20 years under the umbrella of other systems, other organizations, other people. And while it was good work, I was not following my own joy. And so it was time. It was time for me to follow my purpose and to follow my joy under my own conditions, under my own agreements. And it was terrifying. And it still is. But it is also so fulfilling and so rewarding in so many ways. And when I left my job, there was a lot of reaction, as you can imagine, right? Because I left not having a plan. I just knew I needed to leave and do my own thing. And I relied on God, on my faith. I anchored myself in family and friends and my network, right? My network of people who said, Patty, we got you and we're going to be okay, right? And so I really leaned into it, right? Sort of blind, if you will. Something that started to resonate based on a lot of people's comments was, God, Patty, I wish I could do what you're doing, but I feel stuck. I feel like my job is everything, right? Because we're held hostage to the number on a paycheck. We're held hostage to retirement plans and benefits and the accolades and the titles and the prestige. We get stuck and it becomes our identity, right? It becomes who we are. And so people were like, I can't do what you did. You're so brave. Oh my God, I wish I could do that. So I started sensing, so many people really feeling stuck. I can't move forward. And we know that the movement is always circular. But for people, it felt like they just couldn't move past. They couldn't move forward. And I thought, I'm going to help people get unstuck. And we're going to do it with joy, right? And it's not going to be easy. I'm not going to promise you it's going to be easy, right? We're going to get down in the muck and we're going to talk about the things that get in the way. We're going to get uncomfortable because that's where the movement is. And we're going to do it with joy. And you're not going to be alone, right? I got your back. We're going to do this together. And so Forward Joy was born from that. And while I do a lot of things through the work that I do, I feel like joy is always at the center. Doing what we do with joy in our hearts and for the people that we do it for, the people that we're serving. And I think your second part to that question was, how do I find my joy? And I just had this question. I just presented at a symposium a couple of weeks ago. And the question was beautiful. The question I was asked is, where do you go to be held? Where do you go to be held when you are in charge of holding other people? And I really thought about my own joy. And I write about that in my book. I dedicate a lot of poetry to joy. But to me, joy is a step beyond happiness, right? Happiness is fleeting, but joy is unshakable. And it doesn't depend on outside factors.
Yes.
Or the mood of the girl giving me my coffee at the coffee shop, or the weather today.
Yeah.
My joy is in here. Está dentro de mí. And it's unshakable. It's my family. It's my husband. It's my child. It's his face, after I've had a long day, but all he knows is that his mama is right there with him. That is pure joy. And so while there are hardships, and we know that many people are encountering so much suffering around the world today as we speak, I know that I have so much to be thankful for, so many blessings, so many regalos, and that even though I have cargas, I really anchor myself and connect myself to the blessings, which are people, right? My people, mi gente, my family, and the things that Creator puts in front of me, right? And sometimes it's somebody just said, you just got to take it one day at a time. And sometimes it's not even a day at a time. Sometimes it's moment by moment, because that's all we have the capacity for.
Yes.
Right now. There is nothing more important than this present moment. This is joy right now. Sitting here with you, feeling the connection and being seen. This is joy, and it's healing for all of us. So doing more of this is where I really find my joy.
So beautiful.
Oh,
I wish this is all we could do, comadre.
I know, right?
Every day.
Comadreando all day.
No, but
Thank
it's a great truth to what you're saying, because it's really in being present where the lessons are shared, where the experiences are shared, where the dreams are shared. It's really at that time when we can be present, because there's so many things, especially within this way of living, right? This Western way of living, where we're like the ever ready bunny, right? Keep going and going and going and going and going, and there's no stopping. And if there's no stopping, where's that pause for other things to come in? Where's the pause for the connection? Where's the pause for the meditation or contemplation of what things are going on? And so, I really appreciate, you sharing that, because I think we don't hear that enough. It's no secret that I take care of my mom, 93 years old. And I've been blessed because it's really an honor to be able to sit with her in this time of her life, right? But it's really in that silence. I think it's so interesting because during the day, that information that's really deep doesn't come out till the nighttime when it's quiet.
Mm.
And in the night, like when you're sick, you go through the day, but at night you're like, you feel worse. And it's not really that you feel worse. It's just that it's quiet. All the distractions are out of the way, because you've been sick the whole day. Mm-hmm. But when we stop and pause, and I'm really learning that lesson just in my personal life with her at this time. But I think that if we could understand that, especially early on, that we could live intentionally in that way, as a young person, to stop and to pause and to think and to hear, to be present. How good is that for your spirit, for your soul? Because another day what the problems are going to come, they'll always be there. Mm-hmm. But where is that time of replenishment so that we can have that joy or that peace in the midst of the chaos and the madness? So I really appreciate you bringing that point. And I know it's part of the work that you do. And so can you share a little bit, like you work with individuals or coachings, people and things like that, but also you have experience with families and youth. And can you share, a little bit about that and what really set you on that path? What was that? I mean, to leave after 20 years, that's very bold. That's very courageous. But there was something inside of you that knew that was convinced of something in order to leave that all behind. So what is that passion or that motivation that has you doing what you do?
Thank you, Maestra Debbie. I just want to touch on something that you said, because you said, the present moment, and we don't talk enough about that, and especially as a young person, because I feel like, how do you translate what we just shared to the youth today who are moving in this really fast-paced world? I mean, we all are, but as adults, we often have the tools, right? The skills, the strategies to navigate it. But youth, it's all they know, right? The social media, the disconnection from one another, right? And so how do you translate that? And I think for me, it's really modeling it. It's the best strategy as an educator that we have to teach, is to model what we want to see in youth. And I think that a lot of the work we all do here is that, right? Is modeling a way of being. And yes, my background is in education. I started my career working in schools, with schools. And in many ways, I still do that, right? When we come in to do circle keeper training and technical assistance and coaching on transformational healing and restorative practices, I'm still working very much with schools, but I also have done, case management and counseling with families, which I loved. And unfortunately, that work will never go away, right? We know that our students in schools right now don't have enough resources, and that will always be there. But like I mentioned earlier, I really got to this point where I realized that in order to affect change with youth, that we really had to start with adults, that we had been ignoring adult behavior. And I started to see, this burnout, right? And we all hear it. We all see it. Some of us live it, or we lived it, right? This idea of burnout. And I really started to think a lot about that. And about the time when I was considering leaving my job, it was the height of the pandemic. And so I actually did what a lot of people did at that time, is really think about what is truly important. I also had just had a baby, and I thought, what kind of modeling, right? What kind of role model do I want to be for my son? What good is this job, this 6-figure job, with a great retirement and the great benefits if I'm killing myself?
Mm-hmm.
What is it for? And what am I really teaching my son about what is truly important in life? And as I mentioned earlier, I also felt like this is not the dream. This is not the dream. This is not the dream that my ancestors had for me. There is something bigger here that I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm terrified, but I also have to believe in it, because if I don't, no one else will. No one can get me out of what I'm feeling, out of my environment, unless I change it. And it came at a cost, right? There's a lot of sacrifices that come with doing what I did, right? Especially not having another job, waiting for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was a combination of all of that, right? It was, the world was upside down. We didn't know what was going on. I had a child I needed to protect and to guide and to model for. And I had this job that was really not aligning with my core values anymore. And that's what I was bumping up against, if that makes sense. It was like, I'm not operating from an authentic place anymore. I'm just going through the motions,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm doing what others deem is important or a priority or a goal. But there was always this internal struggle with it. And I just felt like I could no longer do that. I could no longer betray myself. I could no longer make myself small. The time for that was over.
Mm-hmm.
And I owed it to my family, to my son, to my ancestors, and to myself to do what I was meant to do in this world. And so it was a culmination of all of that.
James Baldwin says, children aren't very good at listening to their parents, but they sure are good at imitating them. And
That's right.
And that's a great truth, right? Because that's a really significant point. Our youth. What are our youth seeing? And watching us as adults or elders. What are we really teaching is something we need to think about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll share with you, Maestra Debbie, that in a presentation I was giving to, this was like teachers and administrators. And I once said, because somebody in that presentation said, our kids are out of control. They're just out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of took a pause, and it just kind of came out of me without even thinking. But I said out loud, could it be that our kids are out of control because we're out of control? And I know in that moment, there were people in that room that might have been offended, right? How dare you? But that's really how I felt.
Mm-hmm.
That we're all over the place. We are not grounded, right? And by we, I mean the collective we, right? We know that many of us work on being grounded, and sometimes it's a proactive thing. There are days where I do still feel out of control, right? Where I'm like, oh, Patty, get yourself back. Ground yourself. Take a step back, right? Breathe, right? All of the things that we all do to center and ground. But I feel like those reminders are always there, right? And which is why I focus so much on adults now and working with adults.
Absolutely. It's so important, especially when we know that our children are so intuitive. There's, they just have this sense about them to, no matter what our cara is showing, they know something's wrong. And we could
That's
be
right.
assuring them left and right, like, oh, it's okay, mija, it's okay, mijo. And they're like, no, they can feel something's not congruent. Like, yeah, I know their face is saying that, mama, but I know something, you're not okay. You're not okay. But that wisdom that they carry at such a young age, it must have took you a tremendous amount of courage to be able to take the leap and walk away. I feel like we hear sometimes, it wasn't that you were saying no to the work anymore because you still carried the passion so much inside of you, but you were saying yes to you.
That's
you were
right.
saying yes to you. You were saying yes to your ancestors, and you were saying yes to your well-being so that you can continue being that example, starting off with your mijo, your own son. What a beautiful motivation. As you're talking and saying, you had to leave that, I just saw a big image of your mother behind you. Just grounding yourself in her example and that warrior that she is. And I really feel like a lot of your medicine comes from her example to you by being that warrior and not giving up. So inspiring to see that. And, there is so much going on, and we, talking with Maestra Deb, just trying to make time for that pause is so difficult sometimes in the work that we do, because someone always needs something, and a lot of people do, and the positions that we hold, they do look to us to be that light and that inspiration of hope. I have to admit, your book has brought me a lot of grounding and a lot of joy in those moments that I am able to just sit back and pause and just reflect on all the words that you've shared there. And because we all know, and we've been so blessed to be able to share our own stories and learn about the power of our own healing and the medicina that's within our stories. And because of all the lanes, I'm sitting here looking at your bio, and I'm like, oh my God, when does she sleep? When does she sleep? You're in all the lanes, and plus you're a mama too, and a beautiful wife, and there for your family and your siblings and your parents, and just trying to balance it all. I have no doubt, because of your story, just the little bit that you've shared, there are volumes more stories inside of you. And I really feel like they will be volumes someday. But for now, you've chosen to start with your beautiful book, Healing is for All, focusing a lot, I feel, on the healing of our hearts, which is so needed today. I'm just curious to know, out of all the lanes that you work in and all the experiences that you've had, what was the inspiration that you decided, like, I need to do this one first, and I need to do this now?
Yeah. Thank you, Maestra. Thank you for your kindness and your support. All of you have been so supportive and so kind. And, I use this word a lot, but I feel like it's the best way to describe it. Publishing my book, putting my work out there is terrifying. It was terrifying. And it doesn't mean that you are not confident or you don't believe in yourself. I always say imposter syndrome is real. This idea of, are people going to like it? Are they going to judge me? Why me? Like, I'm just little old me. Like, why not this person or this person? And it gets to you. And you realize you're often your own worst critic. But I also came to this point, publishing my book was one of the things that I truly feel that had I not quit my job, I don't think I would have published my book. I mean, was it possible? Sure, but not likely. Do you know what I mean? It's like having the space, the energy, the resources to be able to focus on my writing was a gift I received because I quit, my 9-to-5, if you will. Reading, writing has always been a part of my journey. I have always loved books. Again, that also came from my parents, especially my mom. She always read to us. She had this, old recliner, and she still has it. It's all beat up and ripped. And she used to sit with us on that couch, on that recliner, and read to us. And she always reminds me of this. But anytime we went to the store, my brothers would run, to the toys and candy, and I would always run to the book section, right? Because even grocery stores have books.
Yeah.
So I amassed, as you can imagine, hundreds of books. Half of them are still at my parents' house, and every once in a while she's like, like, ¿cuándo te vas a llevar los libros? Like when are they going to finally like leave, And so I always had this love of books. I always immersed myself in books and writing. And I had this love for it. And I knew that part of that dream that my ancestors had for me was publishing my book. And every poem in my book has a story. There's a story and a dedication behind every poem. And while people may not know as you're reading, you may not know that full story. What I hope resonates is the feeling, the energy,
absolutely,
the love, right? Which with I wrote it, right? So I am really proud of this first book, and I will say my first because I'm currently working on other books. I'll share with you that I'm working on an all Spanish poetry book, and I'm writing in English still. But I think the most important thing that I want to share about writing and my book and why it's special to me is because it's really a dedication to my family. Again, to my ancestors, how they've paved the way for me to do what I do. I can only do what I do because others did it before me, because my family has believed in me, because they said, go for it, do great things. My husband still reminds me, go do great things, go do great things. And so I'm really proud, but also, Maestra, I feel like we're all poets. Everyone is a poet. Everyone has their own stories, their own experiences, your own language that you attach to those stories and those experiences. I just was lucky enough to publish it. And I'm not trying to minimize that, right? I'm very proud of that accomplishment, but we're all poets. And so I also did it for that person out there who is like, oh, I could never do that. Or I don't even know where to begin, right? I'm just little old me. And so it was my reminder to people, again, that we all have our own healing journey, that you're worthy of that healing and that you're worthy of beautiful things like writing a book. So go for it, right? And so I'm really, really proud of this work and what it represents. And like I said, there's a story behind every poem or a person that I wrote it for. As you can probably tell, there's, a lot of poetry about my son, about my experience as a mother, my experience as a wife, my experience as a daughter, as a navigator to my mom, and just my upbringing. There's a poem in here in my book that I wrote when I was 12 years old. And I put it in this book. And the only reason I have that poem is because my mom saved it.
Oh,
I wrote it in school, and my mom, bless her heart, she had it. And about 3 years ago, she gave it to me for Christmas.
Wow.
And so I had to put it in my book.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I feel like I've always been a poet, right? I've always been a writer. And it was time. It was time to show the world and to share it. Yeah.
So grateful that you did it.
And Patty, could you share one of your poems with us today?
Definitely, Maestra. And thank you for asking. And I do hope this is, one of many times, because I'm always honored to sit in the same space as you and connect in this way. But this poem that I want to read for everyone actually is connecting to a lot of what we've been talking about this afternoon, which is the struggle, right? That so many people, that our people, our gente are going through in this moment. And that as witnesses of it, we experience, right? This sort of secondhand struggle, right? We know that compassion fatigue is real. We know that secondary trauma is real. And so collectively, we are all experiencing such a difficult time in this country, in this social climate. And I will share this poem first, and then I'll share with you a little bit of context and where it came from. So this poem is called The Fight, The Legacy. This fight is nothing new. We have been here before. The relentless pursuit for social justice, equity, human resistance, compassion, human dignity. The legacy is very much alive. We continue the fight. What is also very much alive is the courage, the hope, and the compassion of the human spirit. The presence of hope when things don't seem or feel hopeful is alive in all of us. Let us move forward, guided by the values of determination, resiliency, dignity, and compassion, in service to the legacy left behind by those who fought before us. May these words serve as a reminder that none of us have to wait to create change. None of us have to wait to serve. None of us have to wait to show compassion. Within all of us is the power to inspire and empower, and a reminder that none of us have to do it alone. We are all connected in this together, this fight, our fight.
Wow.
Thank you. And I will share that poem, I actually adapted it from a speech that I gave at a Cesar Chavez memorial. I was asked to do the closing remarks at a celebration in honor of Cesar Chavez. And the woman who hired me said, can you just close with something, like healing, like, empowering, motivating. And I said, okay, I'll do my best. And so that poem was adapted from that speech. So I took it and I created that poem for the book. Wow. So that was inspired by what I shared in honor of Cesar Chavez.
And I'm sure it's just so in alignment with his struggle and journey as well. Beautifully said. Beautifully. Thank you for sharing
Thank you so
that with
much.
us. So, comadre, I know we're not going to let her leave without some consejos here.
That's right.
Yeah. We always like to ask our comadres, because of their experience in their journey and their medicine that they carry, hard-earned wisdom, all those blessings. Before we close, we'd like to ask you, what is some advice and consejos that you would like to offer others on their healing journey that might be helpful in terms of their own health and their own healing, but not just for, I know your focus right now is adults and we do need it. We will, the healing journey never ends, as Maestra always says, but also, as you know, the youth, I mean, you always say that holding on to your joy is what keeps you motivated and inspired. But what are some consejos that you would like to leave for this next generation, but also for our elders that have come a long way, and who do they go to? Everyone's going to them, but who do they go to?
Yeah.
Whatever comes out of your corazón.
Thank you so much. There's so many consejos, right? I mean, the podcast could just be consejos. That should be another podcast idea, right? Consejos. I think first and foremost, what I would share with people is what you need to heal is already within you. Nobody is broken. You are not broken. It may feel that way, sure. We've all had those moments, but you are not broken. And you are exactly where you're supposed to be. And while it may not always feel that way, the medicine, the medicina is already within you. We just got to tap into it. And one of the ways, I think one of the most powerful ways that we can tap into that medicine is by really discovering who you are, who you belong to, who you represent, who are you connected to, right? Where do you come from? I talk to so many people who are so disconnected, not just from their families, their communities, but from themselves. where they say, I don't know who I am, right? And we know the power of that question. ¿Quién eres? Who are you? And I know even us, experienced and, I have to return to that question often. Who am I? And we know that is answered differently every day, depending on, right? That question can land very differently.
Yes.
But when you know at your core who you are and who you come from and who you belong to, that is the medicine. That return to who you are is what you need. So really take time to know who you are, where you come from. Don't let others define who you are or what you should be. Find what brings you joy. Find what you're passionate about so that you can find your purpose and really stand upon your ground with dignity and love and faith in your heart.
Well, we're so grateful that you joined us today, Patty. And, the guests that we have bless us in so many ways. And you did that for us today. And more than that reminder, that we are enough, that we have all that we need already within us. And how do we connect? And how do we then tap into that part so that we can continue on this healing path, transforming into that person that is the vision, right? That dream, our ancestors' dream. And so, listeners, I'm sure your hearts are filled as well. And again, always coming together when we have our podcast, right? It's a time of healing. It's a time of reminding ourselves, especially as mujeres, right? That we have that medicine within us. And so I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for joining us. And wherever it is where you find yourself right now, and you may be going through some things, but understand this, that you're enough and you have within you what it takes to find the solutions and taking that time to find the directions that you need to go in. So, comadre, time goes so quick when you're having fun.
I'm inspired and I look forward to working more with you, Patty. I know that I feel that part of Creator's plan to bring us all together, to continue supporting each other, walking with each other, and being there for each other as we continue doing our purpose, our sacred purpose. There is no doubt that healing is for all. Gracias. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Gracias.
And I want to encourage you. She has a book, and I believe it's available through Amazon. And so please, we have it on our webpage. And so please go there. It'll be a book that will bless your spirit. And so we encourage you to get that. And again, we want to thank you. Until next time, this is the National Comadres Network, brought to you by Healing Generations. And con eso, bendiciones.
Bendiciones. Adelante.
Bendiciones.
For more information about Healing Generations and the Healing Generations Institute, visit nationalcompadresnetwork.org and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with our new releases.